You see him every day. He clocks in, pays the bills, and nods in the hallway. He moves through the machinery of life on schedule, but his internal world has gone dark. This pattern of behavior is an ancient inheritance. In the Garden of Eden, the disaster began with silence. Adam stood by, watched the environment change, and said nothing. Generations of men have refined that silence into a survival tactic. They stop tending to their own growth and stop speaking about their exhaustion. The rot remains invisible until the life they built begins to wither. Society trains boys to compete, provide, and achieve. We give them the tools to build a life, but no instructions on how to maintain the man behind it. Without a language for their pain, men allow their silence to morph into a fatal epidemic. It is a quiet force currently dismantling homes and communities from the inside out. The collapse follows a specific sequence, starting with spiritual death. This is a severed connection to any higher purpose or divine meaning. When that anchor is gone, a man shuts down. He retreats into isolation, trading real connection for the cold flickering of digital numbness. This void triggers a second failure, stature death. His core identity crumbles, leaving him unsure of who he is once he can no longer produce or perform. This chart shows the algorithm of attraction, a feedback loop that traps him. He meets an external expectation, suppresses his own needs, loses his identity, and must seek validation to feel seen. Without brotherhood for accountability, the system fractures. Stripped of faith and isolated from peers, a man fades into the background. He stops leading, stops protecting, and eventually abandons the responsibilities that once gave him purpose. Eventually, the soul's burden becomes too heavy for the body to carry. This is physical death, where the stress of silence manifests as biological failure. The data reveals the scale. Men die by suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women. This line graph tracks a timeline through middle age, where physical vitality drops. When trauma meets this decline, mental resilience drops off a cliff. This erosion inevitably spills over into his home. When a man is emotionally and physically spent, his partner and children are left to navigate the relationship alone. The home becomes a place of survival rather than love. Communication is replaced by conflict, and presence is replaced by a heavy atmospheric silence. This is exactly how trauma becomes generational. Because the man is floating in confusion rather than leading with conviction, he passes his brokenness down to his children as their new baseline. Every man eventually hits the ground. Like the heavy sweat of Gethsemane, there is a breaking point where he must finally acknowledge the invisible weight he's been carrying. In that crisis, he is forced to see who he has become and what he has lost. He must decide if he is willing to do the work required to return to life. A man's value is not found in the sum of his failures. It is found in the choices he makes the moment he decides to stand back up. Restoration is an active process. He must break his silence, reclaim a brotherhood that demands accountability, and begin the slow work of tending to his own spiritual and emotional health. When a man heals, the benefit spreads. His wife, his children, and his community are released from survival mode, proving that life can return to the garden